Our turn. So as you might,
can't top that, sorry, Chris.
well, I was gonna say, as you saw, like there's two of us because like we just have to match the level.
Compensate, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's no way, but we're gonna do our best here. I don't know, I can speak for Chris, but I'm not gonna be as organized as like the 2.5 seconds of Laura's awesome talk that I heard. So like bear with me. But I want to very, very strongly agree with what Laura was saying right here at the end of the talk is not in a weird way, but you as women have this ability to bring men to you in some fashion, okay? Not through manipulation, not through angst or anything like that. That's the really negative side that we see way too much of today. But you all have this ability. It's part of this gift that God has given you as women to be able to kind of civilize men. Okay, I mean, in a very real sense. I mean, guys are, like historically builders, right? Physically in general, physically, bigger, stronger, larger, right? And they do the fighting, they do all this hard work, they do all this stuff. We've seen this throughout history. But when we started respecting women around the time of Christianity, right? We started respecting women, and we built up this land of Christendom, right? We ended up with the chivalric code, right? Which was largely to calm men down from rioting and looting and breaking, and to direct their efforts into something good and positive. And a huge part of that chivalric code was to fulfill your responsibilities as a man to women, so that women could do all the marvelous things that you all are capable of doing through the gifts that God has given you. Okay, we can't build families. We can't, teach and nurture in the same way. We can't, get men to kind of like come to the table and get past our, manness, like, right, when we're angry at each other. You guys have this way of just bringing things down to a level that's helpful, that's calm, it's rational, right? It's really great. And it's interesting, I'm seeing some laughing over here. Like, this may not necessarily happen amongst you, but it happens between men and women. And that's the awesome thing. Does that make sense? Like it's like, with men, like, like between us, we might not have the same kind of, effect within a group as each other as we might in a mixed group. Like we have this ability as men and as women to have these awesome effects on each other when we act well and we act with responsibility and we act for the best interest of the other party. So one of the things that we were talking to the guys about was certain characteristics that like men need to have for authentic masculinity to be a real thing. And we were talking about things like discipline and courage and sacrifice, pretty solid stuff, right? I think those things apply to women as well, but I think they apply in a very different way than you would see them as coming from men. And it's because, in general, our roles are a little bit different, right? So, sacrifice for men might be that they go out and they build that temple for, the Egyptians, and they can bring home their money and feed their family, right? That might be their sacrifice for the family. For the women, your sacrifice might be, bearing children, raising them at home, right? It might even be at some point that you take on a job too, after, the early part of childhood is over, when you can do that to help support your family. Discipline, right? Not just for you, but for a family, right? You have the ability to manage and run a home. I mean, the husband is not there all the time, especially like a traditional situation if they're, the primary breadwinner. That's just not going to happen. You all have this awesome ability to keep things running and smooth and stable. And I think that sometimes, most of the time, our society overlooks that and underestimates that. There's nothing more beautiful than a home that's run well. And it's like this. And it's not because men do it, it's because women do it. We might help enable the situation, but you're the ones who have that to put this into place. So I think this this discipline, this generosity that you can bring through these kind of actions are some of the great strengths that I see as a man in women and what you've brought to the table. Now, obviously, I'm in the seminary. I'm not dating. I have no immediate plans to marry anybody. So, this is not necessarily a personal experience, but this is. I have many friends who are either like engaged or married. I've had the privilege of knowing many people from my parents to others who've been great examples of this. And I think that it's really important to me that you all know how much you can bring to men, how much that you have the ability to bring, civilization to civilization. Okay, we might have the whole infrastructure and logic and order down, but you all are the ones who can make it a home, who can make it a good thing, truly. So I'll leave it there for now, and Chris has a few things I think he wants to say as well.
Yeah. We'll open it up for questions though, because this is like your chance to ask some dudes questions about things. So, yeah. So it always bugs me, like in nowadays, sometimes it seems like the battle of the sexes and like this and blah, 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 and then this and that, and it's like, stop. Okay, so like we were meant to be complementary, right? Like the fall screwed it all up, the nature. And I remember I read that Bible quote last week about, when God was talking to Eve and the consequences she would suffer in the fall, and you would be under the dominion of your husband, but not in a good way. And like in the fall, it created a not the best relationship. So, but we're meant to be complementary. We are both men and women, images of the same Father, but we reflect Him differently. I think of, and I know I'm not the only one, but women are the crown of creation. Like seriously. When Adam saw Eve, you can imagine he was like, whoa. You know the way guys get when they see a pretty girl, they get stupid, right? It's like, oh, and in the cartoons, they make it really funny. He's like, that's seriously what it's like. It is, you know how terrifying it is for a guy to approach a girl who he finds to be absolutely beautiful? It is terrifying, especially for a dude who's like a younger guy and he's maybe hasn't really dated or, been on that scene or anything. Even a younger boy, it's absolutely terrifying to approach that girl because you don't know, because he doesn't know what she's going to say. Maybe he'll reject her or she'll reject him, sorry. So yeah, I got the pronouns mixed up. But what I'm saying is, and you don't hear this enough, and a lot of women don't believe it, but you are beautiful. Like seriously, it doesn't matter what your body looks like. It doesn't matter, how you compare to what's on a magazine. But so many girls, it's terrible, and beauty is one of your attributes as a woman, because you reflect God's beauty. And so when man sees your beauty, it reflects the desire for beauty in his heart. Because we all are after, as men especially, we're attracted to God, the beauty of God, and we see that in women. We see that in you, the crown of creation. But it's gotten distorted, right? Because now you've got, what are the standards of beauty today? Practically fake. You've got airbrushed models. You've got, they can go on there, and there was that video where it shows us a pretty regular looking girl, not, nice looking girl, and then they shows all the process they do with putting on her makeup, and then the Photoshop, and they make her neck a little longer and all this stuff, and then it's like, oh, and it's not human. Okay. How do you compare with that, girls? I don't even know. And then you've got, how do you compare with what's on the screens of pornography? How do you compete with that fake depiction of real intimacy? But you guys are beautiful, and I really do mean that. And when you're looking for that relationship, or when I know it feels good when you have that cute guy say, "Wow, you look nice," right? You kind of get the butterflies. Ooh, he noticed. But most dudes don't even. and I'm sorry, but as a guy, I don't always notice when your eyeshadow matches your shoes. You know, but that's okay. And it's okay for you to be beautiful. That's okay. You're supposed to. And that's a good thing because God made man and woman and he said that's very good. Look at how good we are because we reflect God. So I'm just telling you this because you don't hear it enough, but you don't hear it enough authentically because there's so much garbage out there that tells you what you have to compare yourself to. But another reason why I'm telling you this is it is so important when you're going into a relationship that you are okay with yourself and how you look and who you are. Because if you're not, a lot of women tend to seek that validation from guys, you know? And, you know, I'm not a girl and I'm not an expert, but I've been married to my wife for 17 years and she's taught me a lot of things. I learned, but unless you really accept yourself, you won't be able to be in a relationship where you're not dependent on a guy to give you that validation. And so many men in their own distorted desires know how to manipulate girls who need that validation to get what they want. So I'm just throwing it out there. No matter what your size or what you look like or your hair or your eyes or any of your body, everything, that's who you are and it's beautiful. Seriously. And I'm not trying to be cheesy. So he was talking, you know, I liked what Ethan was talking about with the home too. Like, I told the guys in there, you know, yeah, civilization was built by men, like the brick and mortar pretty much, but then it was women who civilized it. And while a man may be the spiritual head of his household, and that's ordered the way God created the family, and a man who loves his family and sacrifices for her is going to be on his knees praying for them. He's going to be offering up sacrifices. He's going to be offering up mortifications for the spiritual well-being of his wife and children. And he may be the spiritual head, and he's going to get the inspirations from the Holy Spirit. But he's also good. But you know who's also going to talk? God is going to talk through you to your husband too. So a good husband's going to listen to you because, you know, he reveals his will through those around us in our lives a lot of times. The man may be the head, but the wife is the heart of the home. And I love that image, the heart of the home. And it's so true. Because, I mean, if I was a bachelor and living on my, it would be like a cave. There'd be no decorations. You know, I would have there'd be clothes on the floor that I would just pick up and, you know, put them on again. You know, it'd be bad, you know? And I'm not just saying that, and I'm not saying my wife is there to do domestic work, but I'm saying like she makes me want to live in a better place and she makes me want to be a better person. You know, and it's what Laura was saying and what Ethan said, I can't tell you how much your beauty inspires men. How many poems and great deeds or terrible deeds have been done because a man was inspired by the beauty of a woman. You know, Helen of Troy, you know, Trojan War. You know, that's not the best circumstance, but seriously, when, like, the best example of this that I can think of, who's here seen Rocky 2? Familiar with Rocky? Okay, he's a boxer. Yo, Adrian, you know. So he's a boxer, right? In Rocky 2, he married his wife Adrian. He loves her. His big rival Apollo Creed has challenged him. But Adrian doesn't want him to box anymore. She's like, you know, I don't want to see you get hurt. And he's like, all right, fine. But then, like, Apollo Creed's really taunting him. So he says, all right, I'll fight you. But Adrian didn't want him to. So he was not into the training. Remember this? He was all like, I mean, his trainer's like, what's the matter with you? We're gonna be fighting the heavyweight champion of the world in 6 weeks and you're not doing anything. Well, his wife, and then she got pregnant and she worked herself too hard and then she was in the hospital and he stopped training and he's got this fight coming up. But he was just sitting by her side the whole time. He loved his wife. And she had the baby but she was in a coma. So she was there, and he was just sitting there day and night, and then the chapel. And then after a while, she woke up. And he goes, oh my gosh, this is great. They see their baby, because he waited to see the baby until she woke up. And then there's this part, my favorite part of the whole movie. She looks at him and says, there's one thing I want you to do. Win. And he's like, this is it. So he goes in and he hits the training and he does it, and then he beats Apollo Creed for the heavyweight championship of the world. But that's what a woman can do for a man. That's the inspiration that we draw from you. You inspire us. And then hopefully, your husband will inspire you in maybe a different way. But when a man's wife is behind him, it really is, it's night and day. If my wife's mad at me for something, I can't imagine why she would be. Just kidding. That weighs me down. I don't want to be in that position. And she never manipulates. She never does anything but like that. She doesn't nag, and she is fantastic. I really am married to a saint. But
So is she.
yeah, okay. But it's that mutual support, and you can see the impact that you guys have on us men. It's amazing, and it's incredible. And I really hope that, if you're called to marriage, you can find that guy who's going to cherish you, because you deserve to be cherished. You deserve to be sacrificed for, and you deserve to be loved in the sacrificial totality of what marriage is. So, got about 10 minutes or so. If you would like to ask some questions, now's your chance. You got a couple of dudes up here. We might know what's actually going on in our brains. We might not. I can't guarantee it, but anything. It can be relationships. It can be, why do guys do this weird thing and I have no idea what that is, or whatever. So, what we got? Oh, somebody, come on. This is like a rare opportunity.
You can't just put us on the spot like that, Chris. It's like, you should have us brainstorm a little bit.
Do you want us to turn our back and talk amongst ourselves for a minute?
Yes, Lucy.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of hard to say, but when a guy gets rejected by a girl, how damaging is that? And how can you make that better?
Oh,
I don't know.
Sure, it can be pretty devastating, but at the same time, you have every right to say no. If there's a guy that you don't want to go out with, or you don't feel comfortable around, you're not there to make him feel better. And if he asks you out, you say, I'm sorry. He can, it's painful, and nobody likes rejection, but at the same time, you're not there to make him feel better about himself either, especially if you're just not even in a relationship with this guy. So, you got anything?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. When you hypothetically do tell this guy, sorry, not interested, be very clear about that. Not mean, but don't leave any room for it to be oh, well, maybe she's not sure, maybe it's a temporary, let me think. No, just be I'm just not interested. You seem like a nice guy, but this is not gonna happen.
I tell my wife sometimes, look, don't send signals, don't send subtle hints. I need to be able to understand it. So be very direct about it.
So, let me say this. 85% of the modern military is men. They have written on the side of the rocket launcher as step number 3, point at enemy. That is the kind of sign that these guys need, okay? This is what we're talking about, okay? On the thing, it says take safety off, open up sights, point at enemy, pull trigger. Those are the steps.
Is this a shotgun?
This is a rocket launcher. So just That's the level that we're talking about here, ladies, okay?
Nice and direct. What else? Molly.
Okay, there's like a lot of ways that men are able to honor women by like holding a door open for us or carrying our bags or something. What are some ways that we can honor them?
First off, I want to clarify, at least when I do it, if I hold a door or carry something, I'm not doing it because I think the woman is weak and she can't do it herself. I'm doing it because I respect her and want to show her a way in which I can honor her. So I'd just like to clarify that, because I know it can be touchy these days because of all that whole war between the sexes thing, but what do you think?
No, I think that's true. I mean, it's a way of us trying to like show you your dignity, but there's so much dignity there that's really hard to do something adequate. So it's in the simple things, I think. You know, as far as like how you could show, you know, that some kind of similar, you know, appreciation for guys, maybe just find ways, like small ways, not overly done, not overly dramatic or anything like that, but to be like appreciative maybe of something that they've done for you or for a friend or for someone. Like recognize occasionally these small things they've gone out of their way to do. I think recognizing those little efforts every now and then is totally worth it. Like it makes the guys feel like 100% like, yes, this stuff that I'm doing matters. Like, you know, these you know, women are appreciating this for what it is. Because the last thing you want to do is be like, oh, like I respect you as a, you know, a woman and as a human being. I'm gonna open this door for you. Like, why are you opening that door for me? Like, I don't need your help. It's like, okay. Yeah. Like it's really like, you know, you just have this, you know, basic impulse. So like if you can show the appreciation in like, there's a wide spectrum of stuff for this. Like, you know, if someone goes out of the way to like help a friend of yours with like finding good car insurance because they're terrible at it. Like, you know, maybe that's something.
I just thought of one more thing I wanted to throw at you. We're not gonna have the modesty talk, but I want to specifically mention this to you guys. The way it is men's responsibility how they view women. But at the same time, I want to throw this out to you for your consideration. Right now, your age group, more and more, there are millions and millions of guys who are addicted to porn. And they're not capable of seeing women for who they are. Okay? And a lot of them are Christians and Catholics. So, just keep that in mind, you know, when you're in dress and appearance and all that stuff. I don't believe in rulers and, you know, all that stuff, because that's a whole other topic of conversation. But what I'm just saying is, you know, that's something that's destroying men, and there's a lot of women too who are struggling with it. But that's unfortunately it's ruined the way a lot of these young men are. They can't see women; they just see a body. So, and especially in relationships, if there's a guy struggling with that, I don't know. I'd be really cautious about that. So, any other questions? Sorry, just ADD thought there. Settle down. Oh my gosh, I can't. Okay.
Wow, nothing.
Yes, Lucy.
Yeah.
Carrying the team.
So having like a friendship with a guy, I don't know, I've heard like things like, oh, guys and girls can't be friends. There's a whole movie about this. I don't know. It's called When Harry Met Sally. I don't know if you've seen it. But yeah, I don't know. Just thoughts on that?
Oh, I have a question.
That's a question.
Follow up? You want to throw that out there too?
Like, how can you maintain that? This is our good right zone.
Down
Like,
there.
how can you be nice without making it seem like you like that? Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
That's a good question.
So-
Is it possible to be
answer
close
this.
friends without, like, the guy
Yeah.
wanting it to be more than that?
So I'll tell you something that they've told us at the seminary as far as like our relationships with women, right? Basically, it's if there is a guy or a girl who's expecting a member of the opposite sex to be like their absolute best friend without being married, that may be a little unrealistic. Especially if one of those two parties intends to have another relationship. right? So if you have, you know, if you're a guy and you're like best friends with this girl and she's got a husband or dating somebody, that can cause problems in that relationship, right? So that's something, it may not even necessarily, the problem may not exist necessarily between you two. It could be something peripheral to that as well. I think to go to Lucy's point, they tell us just to maintain very, very strict boundaries on what you will and you won't do. So like a dinner by yourself, no. Yeah, maybe a small group of friends, you can still have some kind of closer connection there. Okay, sure, like 3 or 4 people, great. Not by yourself, no candles. Okay, yeah, nothing like that. But you know, that's one thing that they're very, very direct with us about in the seminary, because a lot of the people that priests and seminarians, to an extent, deal with are women. Like in the church, there's just a huge percentage of women volunteering and being very active in the church. So it's very important. It was very important for us to have good boundaries with that. So to kind of understand just how far to keep that someone said the friend zone before, how far to, like, you know, where that line is. And I think if there are questions at any point in your mind or in the other guy's mind, it's better to get them out on the table and answer them. Kind of like we were talking before, like, just be very direct about what the relationship is going to be. So if there's a question, you can say, hey, like, you're acting like this. Like, do we need to have a conversation about anything? And maybe that.
Should the girls bring that up? Because I find that being kind of pursuing. Like, if you bring that up.
If
They're
there's
not.
if there's a guy who's like sending like weird mixed signals to you and you don't know what's going on, it's probably a smart idea for you to bring it up. And I don't think that to me that would not be weird.
Yeah. I think it's important too to watch, and I loved Mrs. Stanford's talk on technology and stuff, because that can really blur a lot of lines. You know, if you happen to be, you know, on Facebook and you just start chatting with someone, especially if you're in a relationship or you're married, it's very tempting, you know, then you can share all this deep personal stuff with this random stranger, and that's not real intimacy. That's not, you know, you're escaping, you know, escaping whatever you're in right then. So maintaining strict boundaries, especially in your electronic communications, as you, you know, get into a relationship or get married especially, is very important, because so many social lines have been blurred or erased through social media now that it's just, shoot, I wouldn't want to grow up at this time. It's oh my gosh, those are good questions. They're not back yet, so we might have time for like one more. Yes.
Okay, so like, how can you tell if like a guy is pursuing you for like the right
Well, see, what's that?
Promising start.
Yeah. A lot of times the guy doesn't, I mean, first levels of attraction are mostly physical, especially if you don't know the person. You know, whoa, she's pretty, I'm gonna go talk to her. Hey, how's it going? A lot of times, you know, physical attraction in and of itself is fine. God made us that way, you know, it's like, that's how the species gets, you know, furthered along. We're attracted to each other. But, you know, it depends on the setting too. If you're in the club and the guy comes up to you hammered and just trying to get your number, then he probably doesn't have some good intentions, you know, but, you know, surrounding is a big thing, and also, you know, how he approaches you. Can tell how he looks at you. I mean, girls, you know when a guy's looking at you in the way he shouldn't be. So, you know, be aware of that. Be aware of, you know, how, because, I mean, a lot of guys are just awkward too in approaching the girl, because we know it, you know.
The terrified comment.
Yeah, the terrified, like to walk up and be like, hey, you know, okay, good one, you know. Plus it's, and you know, I was talking to Molly about this one time about how blurred the lines are with dating. Even it's like, oh, I'm talking to this guy. Well, what does that even mean? Like I've talked to people, you know, when I was even in Sheets, oh, I'm talking to this guy, and that could mean we're having text conversations, or she's spending the night at his house, but they're talking and they're not in a relationship. So whatever that means, You know, it's, what you got for this one?
Yeah, so I guess how do we tell when a guy is interested in you for the right reasons? I think a lot of that is going to be in his actions, as Chris is kind of implying here. So I can't remember, maybe I think it was in one of your questions from like a week or two ago, Kiara, but we were talking about like, hey, if the guy's like trying to make out with you on like the first or second date, like probably not a good sign of what's to come, right? If they're like if you've been on like 3 to 7 dates and there's no talk of like, is this going to be a stable thing? Are we doing this for a reason? Are we being intentional about it? Like if that's not happening, then that could be a problem too, because he's just kind of there just being there. So you really want guys who are going to treat you with respect and who kind of can go forward with intention. Bear in mind that those two things, even for good Catholic Christian guys, can vary a little bit. Okay, like they were raised with different people in different parts of the country, so what might be appropriate here, it might not be quite so looked on like I guess the expectation can be a little different. Some people might think it's okay to kiss a little sooner or hold hands a little sooner, and other people might not. That's something you just kind of have to work out as you go. But you should be able to tell what's like clearly like good intentions and clearly what's respectful. Even so, the guys are kind of dorky sometimes. You might have to just say like, hey, let's talk about this. I'm more comfortable doing this thing. And if they're on board with you and they're willing to work with you, that's a really good sign. If they're willing to talk with you, set a boundary, and then respect it, that's a good thing. So.
Can I add like a piece onto that?
Sure.
I think as women, like we have really good insight of reading people, especially men pursuing us. So if we have a doubt in our mind or we're thinking something is not right, chances are it's not. And that can be really hard for us too, especially if we're really into the guy, to be like, oh man, I think he actually just wanted this even though I wanted that, but okay. And like we just kind of go along with it because we're like, well, maybe we can change his mind or maybe it'll turn into something else. So I think it's really important to be very attuned to yourself and what you're feeling and thinking, because chances are you're going to be right because you know yourself and you know your relationships better than anyone else.
Were those helpful answers at all? Yes. Okay, cool. Any others? Like our guys are still late, so typical.
Laura's going to talk a lot.
I'm gonna say.
Okay, this might be a very broad question. It might vary for many guys. But how do guys feel when they can tell a girl likes them? How do they feel? And they don't like them back. Does that make them feel uncomfortable?
Oh.
Like, oh, that's nice. And then it's like, oh, don't like them back.
How uncomfortable does that make them?
Depends on the guy.
Yeah, I mean, a good guy's gonna say, hey, I appreciate it, I'm just not interested in a relationship right now, but, I'd love to still talk to you or whatever. But yeah, inexperienced guys, it would be a bit awkward, especially because right now, like, no matter if you're a guy or a girl, people don't like to say things that they know is gonna make someone uncomfortable, so we hide and we don't say it. That's what another thing from Mrs. Stanford's talk, instead of delivering the bad news, we just obfuscate, or we just don't say, or we ghost them, or don't even say anything at all. So, but yeah, a guy, it can be awkward. Just like when a guy likes you that you don't reciprocate, it's kind of, it might be a little awkward, and hopefully he's not too persistent, but hopefully he won't lead you on, or see if he can, score anything out of it, because that would be a turd thing to do. But yeah, was there any more specifics in that? And
Not really. Honestly, I just want in general.
Yeah, just be careful. Like again, be very clear. Like if in these interactions, and that's going to help a lot of things. Like you'll kind of have an idea for both of you. Like are you interested? Are you not? And then the interested guy hopefully can take steps to think, okay, she's not interested. I'll just go do something over here and not follow her. But sometimes guys don't do that. Again, especially with younger guys, like they just don't know how to handle it sometimes.
I'll have to go yell at them to hurry up now.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies.